My name is Wendy Maurer. 2001, and essentially how I ended up coming to Stafford is I had 3 small children. I was living in LA. I'm from the West Coast. Went to high school and college in Vegas, and then moved to San Diego, where I met my husband, and then traveled up to Los Angeles, and knew we weren't going to spend the rest of our lives there. It wasn't a great place to raise children, and I've been on my own since I was 13 years old after my mother died, so I really didn't have a place that I called home, so I was looking for a home, and made a list, was looking for something that was on a coast because loved seafood, wanted something that had a lot more history than what you can find on the West Coast, and always loved the East Coast, because the East Coast, it seemed like people were more serious, they were more grounded, they were just, as at the risk of offending my West Coast people, they were just better. And so I always wanted to come to the East Coast, even though I'd never been to the East Coast. And I wanted a place that was small, but not too small, close to big cities if I needed culture or, you know, a different type of cuisine. And found Stafford. It turned out, interestingly enough, that my neighbor behind me was from Manassas. And he said, hey, everything on your list sounds like where I'm from, and you should go out there and check it out. So he actually had his brother agree to put us up, and we all came out and visited, and it was the first time I'd ever seen a firefly. Fell in love with the fireflies and knew I had found home. So was traveling through all of the back hills of Stafford and Hartwood and found a lovely place on 5 acres. And interestingly enough, it was like 1.5 miles back on a dirt road, which growing up big city was, you know, a little interesting. And I was dead set on getting a cow at the time, and I was going to be a farm girl. Darn it, we had 5 acres and it had 1 acre cleared, so I was going to farm, and all of those, you know, grandiose ideas that big city people get, and then they get here and they realize that's really hard work. It's really hard work. So went home and sold the house and got a job on the East Coast and packed all of our stuff up and left on September 10th, 2001. In a moving van with 3 small children and going to travel cross country, that in and itself was insane, and stopped in Arizona with my in-laws. I woke up the next morning and the whole world had changed. I was, so it was 6 a.m. when the planes had hit the tower, and I'm watching it on TV, and I was so tired from moving, and the sound wasn't on, and I couldn't figure out what was going on, and there was a call at the house, you know, the plane had hit the Twin Towers, and it was all extremely confusing, and I turned up the sound, and it was amazing. And this is where I was going to call home, was right into the lion's den, and it was very scary. But my husband at the time, he had 2 cousins that were in the Twin Towers, and we had gotten word that the family had heard from them, and so they were okay. And so we get into the moving van and we start traveling cross country. Well, it turned out that they were at the top, and so it wasn't for several weeks that we found out that they were calling from inside the building and didn't make it. So anyway, traveling cross country, got the Disney movies going to entertain the kids, and so didn't really get the onslaught of news media like most people did, and looking back on that, I think we were better off for it. So the only time I knew what was going on in the country was when I stopped at gas stations. You know, is the world still here? Are we at war? What's going on? I'm moving to Virginia. And it was interesting. It was definitely interesting to see all the different states, you know, Texas and Oklahoma and all of these places that we stopped. And then our moving van broke down in Bristol, Virginia. And so there we are in Bristol, Virginia with 3 kids and a dog and a broken down moving van, and there were no planes flying, so people were renting moving vans and bicycles and cars, and so they couldn't get us a new one. So we're stuck in Bristol, Virginia for 3 days before they could find another moving van in order to get us the rest of the way to Stafford. It was definitely an adventure. It was a different way to experience the 9/11 tragedies. And then we moved to Hartwood, and we didn't have cable. So we're in Hartwood, we have no TV, And we had thought we weren't going to get TV. We were going to, become one with nature and, family time and all of those things. And we didn't know anyone either. So we had distant neighbors who were wonderful. Oh my gosh, great neighbors out at Stonehouse Wooded Estates. And but we didn't know them, and so here we are isolated, and then you're going through the anthrax scare, and we're all buying duct tape. And so finally I says, you know what, we could go to war and not know. We weren't getting the paper, I said, we need to get cable. So it was about a month later that I finally broke down. I ordered cable. Cable guy comes, okay, modern day society, and he hooks it all up, and he flips it on just as they drop the first bomb in Iraq. And I said, okay, well, there's that answer. We're at war. Yay, turn off the TV. And so it was definitely interesting. But I'll tell you, Stafford is an incredible place. You've got it's the best that community has to offer. And the community banded together then, and people welcomed us with open arms, even though we were like evil West Coast people. And we met our mechanic, Kevin Beach, who is just one of the greatest mechanics to ever walk the face of the earth. I mean, the man is brilliant and honest and trustworthy. And so whenever I would have a car breakdown and I'd go to pick up my car and I'd say, okay, how much do I owe you? And he's like, yeah, I haven't put your bill together. Come back later. I'm like, what do you mean? What? But that's Stafford for you, and that's the Heartwood area. And it's quite frankly, it's beautiful. So I had small children in school. And that's the fastest way to build community, is you get involved in your child's school, in your child's education. So I had one child in kindergarten, and she went to Heartwood Elementary School, and that place is just beautiful and wonderful. And Miss Walker, who was the principal at the time, it was very family oriented, so it was easy. It was very easy to meet people. In addition to that, I had two smaller children going to Cornerstone Baptist, which is another one of those family type preschools. And so between my neighbors and the schools, it was easy to get involved in the community. And then when there was budgeting issues, and it seemed like the Board of Supervisors and the school divisions were kind of at war, two things actually got me extremely involved in local politics in the local community. One of them was the Heartwood water issue. And so Heartwood Elementary School is the only school that's currently on a well system. And with all of the runoff coming from 17, there was, high risk for contamination. In addition to that, somebody had accidentally turned off the alarm system to the well, and so when it got really low, what happened was that there was no water at Heartwood Elementary School, and they couldn't bus the kids out because the buses had already been sent out for the high schools. And so these kids were kind of stuck there with no water. So between fears of water quality and the well situation, I got very active in the political arena on the Heartwood water issue. And then the budgeting issue on top of that also got me incredibly involved. So my background is in accounting and finance, and I raised some questions on the budget and ended up going to work for Stafford County Public Schools, working on cost-cutting revenue-generating projects. And so all of the special projects that other people were too busy to do were projects that I ended up working on. So, for example, one of the most amazing projects that I got to work on and that I'm proudest of is the JROTC program. So we were told that we were an overrepresented state, and which meant that we had more JROTC programs in Virginia as opposed to, I don't know, someplace like Oregon. And I don't know if that's accurate, so don't quote me on that, but we were overrepresented. And so we were not going to get a traditional JROTC program, and that just sounded crazy. With our heavy military community, there had to be a way. And I knew that there was a definite will, both among parents and administration. And so I was tasked with finding a way, and there was a loophole. And the loophole was the NDAA program. And through the NDAA program, if you were able to finance the entire project, then they would put a JROTC program in it. The beautiful thing was if another JROTC program shut down in another school, the schools that had NDAA programs then got bumped to the top of the list, and it really didn't matter whether or not they were overrepresented. And so now we have JROTC, I believe, in 4 of our 5 high schools. And so when I see, I get to be involved in the senior awards ceremonies. And so when I see these academy appointments, I get really excited because I feel like, in a very, very small way, I had a hand in that in helping to get a JROTC program here in Stafford County.